Well, the conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as YouTube, and also www.spicefm.co.ke. We'll be joined shortly by Scheaffer Okore. She'll tell us who she is and what she represents. She is the deputy party leader, or is it the deputy vice chairperson of Kwale party. Next, let's discuss women in leadership, especially is Kenya ready to have a woman president? Good morning.
.9 Spice.
It's 12 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Eric Latif, CT Muga, Okore, and now joined in the hot seat by Scheaffer Okore. Scheaffer is the vice chairperson of Kwale party. Scheaffer, good morning and welcome.
Oh, wait. Good morning.
Put on the headphones. Yes.
I know. I think I keep forgetting how radio works.
Yes, this is how it works. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much for having me.
Asante for joining us.
Yes.
Of course, we'll want to know this political party that you represent. It's called Kwale Party.
Yes.
Give us a history of Kwale Party.
Kwale Party's history is very long. It was a dream and an ambition for a lot of young people who didn't have a space politically to champion for power, to get power, to negotiate power, to exist in a political space that always leaves young people out. So Kwale was a dream of a couple of people, friends of mine, who decided we're tired of speaking from the margins. We're going to organize ourselves politically, because I think that's the only thing that's always lacking when it comes to young people, and specifically women, talking about, oh my God, you need to be in leadership, but where? You need to be in leadership, but how? You need to be in leadership, but in which category, right? So then the Kwale Party was the dream that we all birthed, and it took us a while. It took us a long time. I think people imagined that it was something that we just said, oh my God, let's come together and make this fantastical, magical thing and call it a party. No. We were in court for 3 years because they couldn't get registration, because of how the system works. Because when young people now decide, hey, we want to go for political power, it's another ball game, right? Then, of course, after that, realizing that we still had to keep moving, we kept moving. So in 2017, we finally got our certificate and you know, presented people who Kenyans have never seen before, with a fantastical track record. They changed history. I think the story of Kwale hasn't been told well enough, because it's seen as politics, and then, you know, these are people seeking, publicity, you know, and clout.
Publicity and power.
Yes.
But are you not seeking publicity and clout?
Actually, it comes with the territory. So whether you seek it or not, as long as you're seeking political power, it comes, whether you want it or not. I, for one, wanted to live a very anonymous life. I wanted it to just be in the background and never be seen. But here I am.
You wanted to be in politics and you wanted to be in the background.
Yes. I was running away from leadership for a long time. That was my journey of coming to a place now where I accepted that, hey, I play a role in this joint, and the joint is Kenya. I have some things to say. There's demands I have. There are needs I need people to feel that they're not going to do. So I might as well just come forth and do what needs to be done, right? So that was it. I think changing history, and going back to what I said about changing history, is Kwale Party was the first party that literally taught people how to raise money. What we usually don't do in politics, because our politics is very incentivized. So the politician goes, makes money from I don't know where. We can never quantify where the wealth comes from.
We do. We can.
You really can?
Yes. It's mostly stolen. But
Fantastical. Fantastical. Back to my point. So you can't quantify your wealth, and then we come back and then we say, oh my God, vote for me. I'm great. I've run businesses, I've run corporations, I've run companies. But here we are with young people, right, raising money, and we would go into restaurants and someone would say, please take this 20 shillings, I add this to your campaign. You're doing this the right way. Because for the first time, we needed people to know that politics can and should be different, that politics must be different, that people should own politicians, that political parties should be able to take control of their candidates. So this shenanigan of now you're seeing politicians running amok, and then you ask the party, hey, so friend, you're the one who presented this person to us. Yes, we made maybe a mistake on not voting for them, you know, but then we are stuck with them and they're doing all these horrific things illegally. What do we do? Where is the responsibility as a political party before we even say, oh, but you know, it's the people who should be responsible because they voted in this person. You know what I mean? So then where is the role of political parties? Where is the role of institutions? Where is the role of even the people who clear them to run for office? Where is what are they doing before we talk about then the citizens are the ones to blame because anyway, we're jinga sisi.
Who's the chairman of this party?
Boniface Mwangi.
All right.
Yes.
So now we can put face to. So Boniface Mwangi was vying in Starehe in the last election.
Yes.
And when you talk about funds mobilization, is it what we saw Boniface Mwangi doing, going around the country, trying to raise money? Because that's what we saw. He was raising money via, like SMS platform and such.
Exactly.
So this is the kind of thing that you're saying. People contributed towards a campaign.
Yes.
How much was he able to raise?
I think he raised around an estimate of 10 million, which wonderfully also demonstrated that politicians can be given money and they can be accountable.
10 million directly from the people or 10 million from organizations as well?
From everybody across the place, right? So it was coming from Kenya, it was coming from Kenyans, it was coming across board, from everywhere, that we could get money and where people felt like we were doing something right. And it wasn't just him. Even Samantha Maina, who ran for Kilelesha Ward, did the same, right? Cynthia Kihu, who also ran for MP, I think in Embakasi somewhere, also did the same. We had several other candidates doing the same thing. But you see, these are not flowery, these are not... this is the hard work of doing the right thing. It's very rare for people to want to do that. People want people standing on a podium and saying, tanga tanga and Kileleweke.
But even those in Tanga Tanga and Kileweke started somewhere.
True, but did they start on the same field?
Yes and no. They started on what was available and they latched on to what existed.
And then what has been the outcome?
The outcome is what we see now.
They're in leadership.
And where I'm going with this is when you start something new,
Yes.
as you did, what you report as having experience is what you should have expected. Because
You're not disregarding that.
Yes, because if essentially you are making a statement and saying we're going against the grain, we're swimming against the tide.
Absolutely.
What did you expect?
To nothing less. Because it was hard work from the beginning. I think if there was anything we were expecting was it to not at any particular point be a sane journey. And it was absolutely that. It was the most insane thing we ever did.
And what is it now?
It is a wonderful experience. Am I sitting here now giving a testimony of what it means to run for leadership?
How many candidates did your party sponsor?
13.
30.
13.
13 candidates in total in MCA and MP.
Yes.
Did you have any for governor or senator?
No.
So it was just at that level?
Yes.
MCA and MP?
Yes.
How many won?
None.
What are the lessons?
We had 3 of them come third, and then I think the rest of them came in fourth in the overall. By the end of the election, I think one of the many lessons. One of the lessons that we took in was that there's never enough time, and you can never be ready for what politics is and what that journey takes, right? Because one of the things that we saw was our candidates only having 3 months to campaign, with politicians who've been campaigning instead of working for as long as they've been in office, right? And then you're also understanding where they come from, where they have no political experience. Because this is someone who says, I'm just fed up. I'm going to try this, right? So you have to give them credit of even just having that courage in a country like Kenya where everything is kind of a total mess, right? For even thinking they could bring sanity in such a murky place. And then thirdly, you understand that they're young people. So having access to even platforms to engage their voters, having access to even the conversations that they should be in is very hard because they're dismissed as, oh my God. So you belong to the young people who are just out here seeking what I said, clout, you know what I mean? So taking them seriously is also problematic. And then you understand that these are young people who are also grappling with the fact that there is political dynasty in Kenya. Our political culture is based around godfathers and godfatherism, right? So anybody else who is not in a box we can identify as either Party A or Party B, and we're very clear who owns Party A, Party B, then is just a bystander or just someone, wasting their time. But then here we are, we had all these people who are saying, but we can still have a voice in this place, right? We still have an option. We still can say something. We still can do something. And then chartering that path, because I think that path doesn't exist. And most of us who want leadership, and most of us who just want Kenya to be a country we can actually breathe, and feel seen and heard, have to understand that we are chartering a new path. And that comes with everything else. So I think one of the biggest lessons is just seeing the young people are here and they're courageous enough to just go against the insanity of this country and say, no, we still need normalcy. We still need better.
Well, of course, we'll ask you whether this is the first time that we're seeing young people or people with a different voice or people who believe that they are championing a different path for the country, whether it's the first time that we're seeing the emergence of this, whether you've seen it before, towards success, and the lessons that you've learned out of this. So you came out, yes, you had all these voices and you were speaking a different language, and yet people didn't seem to resonate. So
what was this different language that you're speaking?
First, it's just playing the politics of people, where people get to own you and people get to be the ones who determine where you go, how you become, what you end up being. I think that's very different. With the politics that's already been cast on stone. So you know you're either conforming or you're out. That's one thing that I think is very important. Because someone like me, speaking personally from just my own experience in various spaces of leadership and speaking as someone who represents a party on executive leadership, understanding that a young woman of myself, who's not married, who doesn't have a child, who is seen as someone who cannot be controlled or tethered, is a problem in a country where patriarchy runs politics. Because people will say, my God, when she goes and runs things to the ground, which man do we talk to tone her down? You see what I mean? Exactly. Because that's the thing. So understanding that even me being here, engaging in a political discourse that's different. Overtly male, is very different.
We have in the studio on the hot seat Development Strategy Advisor, Scheaffer Okore. She's also the Vice Chairperson of the Ukweli Party. The conversation continues. Of course, we're coming up to 9 o'clock. We'll take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we come back. We'll be asking about Ukweli Party, the lessons that they learned in the last election, and what their plans are for the future, plus woman president in Kenya. Good morning. Watch the conversation on our digital platforms, Spice FM, KE, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and what's the other one? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, as well as our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. City, what do you call Instagram?
Erasmus.
Erasmus, that one. On the hot seat this morning is a Development Strategy Advisor and Vice Chairperson of the Ukweli Party, Scheaffer Okore. Well, yes, so you got yourself registered in 2017. You sponsored 13 candidates for positions of member of the County Assembly and member of the National Assembly. And, of course, you're telling us the experiences that you learned out of this. And you're saying this is a young party. But now the leader of this party is Boniface Mwangi. He is known to be very vocal. He's known to stand up and speak. Extremely. Stand up and speak truth to power.
Yes.
Or refuse to give way to power. Right? On the roads. When he's confronted by a siren and security officers are telling him, just give way. Like Sitoki. Well, we see that, right? At the same time, we have heard accusations from, of course, various political quarters that, when you look at these people, these young people, these are now the new people who are getting money from, other international quarters to come and run civil society in this country. So when I was asking who financed, who was financing your campaigns, you said that there are people who gave you money directly as individuals. How many of them were non-Kenyans?
Wow, then that means you have to go back to the books and check, because you're receiving money
Roughly
through M-Pesa. No, because what you want me to answer is a direct question, and I want to give us a direct answer.
In one. Did you get funding, foreign funding? That's what you're being asked.
Foreign funding means we are getting it from a specific place. Right?
It's outside the country and not within the continent.
No,
because
no, that's not a context within that which sits.
We actually don't
foreign
consider
foreign funding means that you're getting funding from a specific organization or a specific entity that's giving you money as Ukweli Party.
Answer that question.
Which we didn't get.
Okay.
Right. We were being given money and we were being sent money by individuals in the diaspora. People who are friends of us, people who've been friends of the party, people who are friends of the candidates who are vying, all of that, right? That was how we got our funding. So it wasn't a specific, because when you say foreign funding, I now wear my development hat and I look at it from a place of, were we getting it from a place like
a certain organization?
No, it wasn't. Because organizations are very wary, and you know that. Organizations say, especially the non-profit ones, say, you're very partisan.
Yes,
we will support an event you're doing, but not a party. See what I mean?
They are political entities.
Yes, that could
fund such functions and fund parties as well. Yes. Maybe those are the ones, no.
No.
Okay.
No, we did not. Okay. What was the next question?
It was
I who actually sort of like grafted my question into his.
Okay.
Yes.
You coupled it.
Yeah. Good word, that. Good word. Good word. Coupled.
Development communications.
Coupled. This is very good. Like that word. I'm going to write it down. Coupled.
You're welcome.
Yes. Now, when you say that you're prepared for the struggle and the long haul, what do you mean?
I mean, we understand that the journey of changing Kenya and changing political culture, changing leadership, what leadership has been, I think everybody knows what bad leadership is. And every time you ask people, what type of leader do you want? They will say, what we don't want, you know, instead of what we actually do want. Because it's easier, and it's been the thing we've experienced for decades, of what bad leadership is, of what a leadership that has no representation looks like, what a leadership that's not accountable look like. So our long haul strategy is to be able to first make people understand that this is not an event. This is not a one thing that we take a shot at and be like, well, that was great.
Tried.
You know, yeah, we gave you 13 people, you rejected them. So here we are, you know, we are hanging our hats and saying thank you and adios. No. It's understanding that leadership in and of itself, like everything else that requires behavioral change, because political culture in Kenya requires behavioral change, is long term. And it is something that needs consistency in how it's communicated, in how it's morphed, how it's sculpted going forward. It's in the communication, it's in the language that is used, because political language in Kenya is very violent. It's very abrasive, it's very abusive, it's very, you are not my mother, I don't know you are sister, this and that. So demonstrating that takes a while, and demonstrating that means that a lot more people have to be able to start unlearning the culture that we have inherited, where we think that leaders are people who just exist in this glass house that we are supposed to watch and be amazed by, and not people who are supposed to serve us, and people who are reachable, and people who we can actually say, my God, please address this thing and figure out how you're addressing it. That is what we want to do. So change the culture inherently so that we can move better and we can present people better.
These minority voices that you represent,
Yes.
this is not the first time. We saw Safina Party, the Kenya National Congress of Nyona. You saw even in the Charity Ngilu campaign of 97. This, it has been attempted before.
Yes.
And what do we see? We see those people just saying, all right, so this is the direction that Kenyans really want to go. So we join the voice of the people.
Yeah.
When Jim Orengo has tried to be a president and then he's realized, okay, so let me just come back and join our main political party. Have you sought lessons from what has been tried and tested before?
Yes.
And to understand what didn't work and why it didn't work?
Yes. I think most importantly is that people don't link what has happened before to what is happening now. So without people like Charity Ngilus and the Martha Karuas and the Orengos and the Nyonas and even Raila Odinga, right? Without them, and I see you smiling, without them being and doing what they did, we wouldn't do what we are doing. Because what happens, and that goes back to what I was saying about this is a journey and it's not a destination, and that someone will plant a seed. So a seed of possibility, a seed of reimagining leadership. Ngilu planted a seed of reimagining what it would mean for a female to run for president of Kenya. Martha Karua took that forward, ran for the presidency. All these other people you're talking about have always spoken for the people. What happens is, at the end of the day, people are people, right? And then we burden one person with the responsibility of overhauling an entire system. Because what the problem is a system. It's something that even me as Scheaffer Okore, if I went in saying, oh my God, I'm going to save everything and fight everyone and do whatever, it's not a one-woman solo thing. It's not. That's why we have to prepare people for what leadership is when it changes. And it can't be one person. The people who came before have flaws. They always have had. But what they did that moved conversations forward was make people like us look back and be like, oh my God, at a time when we couldn't even speak, there was someone speaking. During multi-party struggles, you know, when we were just trying to figure out, oh my God, do we even need a single party or do we need other parties? Even that alone has led to what Ukweli has become, because Ukweli is only possible because there are people who fought for a multi-party state.
The challenge I see here is, the people, the constituents that you seek to get support from.
Yes.
Because of looking at all this, we see it's just the same. They're just trying to use a different language. In the end, we'll have Muturi Kigano being a Jubilee MP 10 years from now. A couple of years back, he was Safina leader, Paul Moite the same. And they're like, yeah. You're just seeking relevance, and then you'll join the big party, and then you'll go to parliament and become like the rest of them.
Actually, even more so, I'm having difficulties determining whether this is a political party or an NGO that deals with civil society work.
Why?
Well, the rhetoric and the explanations is very civil society.
Okay.
Because civil society in this country are the ones who are associated strongly with the sort of change that you're talking about.
Okay.
Political parties are associated with manifestos which never work.
Okay.
Okay? Now, civil society, lovely talk. When you listen to it, it's beautiful. It's rhythmic. The lyrics are wonderful.
Yeah.
All the lack is the music to accompany it.
Okay.
Ukweli sounding like that.
Okay.
How is Ukweli different?
Where's the beat?
No, Ukweli only sounds like that because we are imagining that politics can actually sound and be different. And that's the thing, where we are stuck at thinking that political parties only have manifestos that are never implemented, which I agree. To a very large extent, I agree. We had manifestos as well, which you never got a chance to implement, which is fine. I think that was part of the journey. The reason why right now we are in a place where
must you be elected to implement them?
Not really. Not really. The thing is also expecting that people who don't have utmost power to do the things that the people who are in power fail to do is a misplaced thing. Where someone like, for example, Boniface Mwangi, because he becomes the easier target, like you said, he's a more visible, vocal human, right? So then people still asking him to fix Starehe when he offered himself for leadership for Starehe and he didn't go through. The most he can do, because he's also limited. The things I would love to do for this country, I cannot do because I don't have access to those resources. I don't have access to those spaces. And that's just the truth of the matter. That's why you elect people. The most we can do. So if I'm to finish, so the most we can do as people who are running a political organization that really is so different, because we will speak very unbelievable things, because that's where we have to be. Imagining a new leadership, imagining what politics can be and what politics can feel like, cannot be something that can be easily seen by the eye, cannot be something that matches what political parties are saying and doing now. It just cannot be. So yes, it might sound very utopia. And yes, it might sound very out of reach, our flowers, and it just needs a candy floss. But you know what happens is, at this very state in this country, Kenyans just lack someone to give them hope. And hope is sometimes very unrealistic, because you can be very hopeful in a very dire situation. So even having people who are constantly having an engagement about the country that is very vigorous enough to make someone feel like, I should contribute, I should be part of this. How many people actually contribute to political parties? We had people contributing to our party, ordinary Kenyans, even in traffic. Someone would knock down the window of the car, you roll it down and they're like, hey, munafanya kazi mzuri, asanteni, take 50 shillings. That is not something you can just do by doing the same thing that everybody else has done.
So if this was the case and you see this kind of support that's coming through just from random individuals, then how, I mean, because for us to really understand then and to be able to get towards solutions, why then did we not see that translate to where somebody puts now their vote down on the ballot?
So because one, understand where the country was in 2017 and understand how polarizing Kenyan politics is. Right, where you are a good candidate, and you've seen this with people. It's not even Ukweli candidates. It happens everywhere, right? Where people will say, "Oh my God, Latif, you're a great person, but I don't really think you're cut out for leadership." Why? Especially political leadership, because you know leadership is also layers. It's political leadership because one, either you're not as aggressive as they are, and by aggression we mean the typical thing that we see now. That's very disgusting. Two, you're not them tuawatu. You know, you're not the kind of person who's standing by the road and giving people money, because hell, you don't even have that money to begin with yourself. You're just presenting yourself for a position. You know, how am I supposed to even have money to give? So then understand that there are people who don't vote for you, not because they don't want you to get into a place, but because they already feel you're not going to win, right? So when you get into the psyche of the Kenyan voter, and I think people should understand the Kenyan voter, as much as we want to think they're stupid, they're not. Right? It is like this.
There you go.
They really aren't.
Validation?
No, they really aren't. The reason being, you look at from independence, right, to the Moi era, and we were led by two men who either had an iron fist, or you knew you were going to disappear, or something bad was going to happen to you, right? And then this is what everybody experienced. And that's why I say it's so important to unpack how people have experienced politics in this country. And if you're honest about it, we will know that there's certain people in the country who've experienced politics with a little more leniency, because they're closer to power. And they're closer to power in what regard? In either your name. So our person is in power, so we kind of get favors. We see this is happening even now, right? So you understand there's a part of the people who've never experienced that. They've always known that leadership is about them being the outsiders, them being seen as the hecklers, them being seen as the minority group that everybody forgets, right? So this carries on to now an era where we have Kibaki, you know what I mean? And then everybody had hope and you're like, oh my God, finally we have someone, we're united, etc., etc. Then it kind of went and dwindled down, you know, it happened like that, then we get heartbroken. So good analogy. Look at it as a relationship. Kenyans have been in a relationship with 5 different or 6 different governments, I lose count. And all of them have broken our hearts because we love them and we really want them to do right. And we really hope that they do right because they say they're going to do right, right? And constantly you end up in an abusive relationship. So there's extrajudicial killings, there's state plunder, there's institutional plunder. Everything is collapsing. So you end up feeling heartbroken. And then here you are saying, we can actually still have great leadership. So as in relationship, a synopsis, you can still meet a good man, so who is a good leader or a good woman, who can take you to the promised land, whichever that is. If you come from a state of trauma, because Kenyans are very traumatized people when it comes to politics and leadership, you're promising them this person who they don't even understand how this happens. They are bound to say, please, we'd rather choose our thief. We'd rather choose the devil we know. Because angels have come and we don't trust them. So it is the thing about preparing people mentally to want to believe that 1, we deserve good leadership, 2, we are worthy and capable, and then 3, we work to present these people, to support them, and then figure out how do institutions come and play a role in making sure these people get elected. It's hard work.
Scheaffer Okore is the vice chairperson of Kwale Party. We're talking about what the party stands for, what the lessons that they learned in the last election, and what they hope to do in future. She's talking about, you know, changing the perception and mindset of the Kenyan voter. A tough job there you have. You know, it's 17 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Yeah. It continues. Join the conversation on our social media platforms at SpiceFMKE, on Facebook at SpiceFMKE, Twitter at CT Muga, at Eric Latif, at Nduoko. What's yours, Scheaffer?
At Scheaffer.
At Scheaffer.
At Scheaffer. Scheaffer and then double O at the end.
Okay, yes. At Scheaffer. Yes. So we're talking about the Kwale Party and the lessons that you learned. And one of the things that we want to discuss today is you've actually mentioned them. So you talked about Charity Ngilu, who had a stint at the presidency. In 1997. In 2012, we had Martha Karua. Yes. When do you see the next woman candidate coming up?
As soon as even 2022.
Do you think we're ready? And when I say ready, I don't mean on the part of the woman.
The candidate.
The candidate. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. I'm talking about this same Kenyan electorate or this same Kenyan population. Yeah. Are Kenyans ready to put a woman at that seat?
I love that you say that, because that's where my answer is going to stem from. Because the whole idea of, are people ready? People, I think generally voters are never ready for any change or any shift, because it's, you know, where you're in a state, and I say this as a voter now and not someone who, you know, runs a political party. As a voter, even if I get to see a new person, there's a hesitation that comes, because I'm wondering, you know, you go back to default setting, and default setting is the trauma of we've had a bad relationship with terrible leaders for as long as we have been in existence as a country, right? So then you go back to that for a minute and you're like, oh my God, I really hope, right? So then the ability to push forward through that and be able to see now that we can make this person what we want them to be, that I think is a whole other conversation. And that's where the work is. So yes, are Kenyans ready for a female president? I don't think they are, and I'm going to explain why. It's because getting ready for a female president means getting the voters ready for female leadership, right? And as I said, politics is overtly male. Politics is deeply patriarchal. Politics is very masculine and very macho, right? So only the women who get, even the women now who are in political spaces, and I'm not talking about MPs, I'm talking about even the governors, right? And the senators. So this very high tier elected seats where women are, you will see that majority of them struggle to balance between, if I am myself, then I am emotional, then I am weak, then I am not fighting like the men, right? Because the men have become the bar of what politics should be, of what good politics should become, of what the language of politics is, of even how politics, even the aesthetics of politics is very male, You know, like when you're a politician and you're a woman, your hair has to look a certain way. You have to wear a certain type of lipstick. It's very true, right?
And dresses versus pants.
You see what I mean? That's exactly it. That the aesthetics is very masculine. So you have to understand that the female politician is trying to go through all of these impediments that are very, they are not visible to the male competitors, right? But they are real things that hold you back. Because the one thing you'll be asked as a female who's running for political office would be, oh, wow, as a very lovely person, why would you choose leadership? And I'm thinking, you don't ask this to men. You don't go like, oh, wow, Latif, as a very handsome man, why go into leadership? You see what I mean?
Did you hear that?
You see? Why would you?
Why would I go for leadership?
Yes.
I'll remember this phrase.
See? So that's why I said even how we use language, even how we engage in questioning or even thinking around these things have to change. So we have to prepare the voter, and it's important because one, they are the people who have to be ready to start seeing that this is something that they can do, you know, because you can't change a country without people.
What are you doing to change the voter?
Having conversations that are very consistent, engaging people.
What's the content of your conversation?
So one content of the conversation is first unpacking the culture of politics in Kenya. And I've said it now, I think, so many times. And unpacking that means, one, we are going back into where we have come from as people. And we do this specifically in very specific areas because people are also very different. And how they engage in political conversations is also very different. So starting to teach them on what Kenya has been, what it has been built on, what are the things that should stand out and they should be cautious about when people speak about them, when people either ignore them or when people try to use them to weaponize a certain thing over another, right? So for example, we will use tribe, and we weaponize tribe when we go into political campaigns or into elections. So even the weaponization of politics, so making the voter aware of what that is, because a lot of people don't know. People just know when we get closer, I start to dislike you. Because either your name, my name, you know, your sister, your wife, me, my relatives, we suddenly realize we are different. But then in 5 years, you are meant to believe that we are not.
I'm not hearing like you're answering CT's question.
So I'm going back to my content.
The specifics.
Yes. So one, we start unpacking what political culture has been, the negative of that, and why we are here. Why we're
assuming the electorate don't understand it.
No, I'm not assuming they don't. What I'm making you understand is they know the wrong things, right? They know the wrong things. And you will have this conversation with people and they will tell you distorted parts of Kenyan history that even you are shocked that there are parts of this country where we are taught that there are certain tribes that were enemies, there are certain tribes that were not enemies, and that there are people who came before other people, right? And then you start wondering, if this is what these people know, then that's why they do what they do. That's why I said the Kenyan voter is not stupid, right? We have to meet them. We are very misinformed. Even I as a person, there's certain things I am getting to learn about Kenya now and how politics has played a role in it and how it has enforced that even in institutions like education and what we are taught and what we are learned, right? And then we take that and we use it at the ballot because we are thinking, oh, wow, you know, X people are our enemies anyway, you know, they don't do this or they don't understand this. So going back into that and teaching the link between the political culture that has been, the misinformation, the distorted history, and where we are. And then we move on to the next level where we are talking about the responsibility of what active citizenship means, the role that Kenyans are supposed to play after the election. Because there's this thing of, come out, vote, then we're done.
Stop for a moment.
Yes.
In all this conversation, what you're saying, I like, it makes sense. Do you have any conversation as to how you can change the economic situation?
We do.
What do you tell them?
We do.
What is this message?
I think one of the most important things is understanding that the rot within the economic space now that we are struggling with is very deep and it is structural. So first, it is not just the leadership as is now that has gotten it where it is or has completely defunct it. It is understanding that there are very many key, it's like a river, so tributaries. There are very many things that lead into it that allow it to be what it is. Case in point, youth and employment. And we'll talk about, we are creating this project for young people to get employment. But then nobody is unpacking the fact that, one, we are not just talking about employment for employment's sake. We are talking about dignity of work. And this is even defined in international status.
Do you have activities that you are involved in that could exemplify the things that you're unpacking?
We are getting activities rolling now. in specific counties. Okay. We want to do that.
What sort of it's something that has been planned for, and you want to now roll it out?
Yes, we are planning to roll something to start engaging our voters beyond just, because we also can't be.
The reason why I ask is, remember, my initial assertion was that you sound like civil society.
Okay.
And in the absence of any activity, whether it is helping people build a road,
okay,
whether it is helping them find a way of using the mud they have to build their school,
okay,
these are things people can relate to directly, because
yes,
the vast majority of our people actually are poor.
Yes.
Yes. Now, unless
majority of people are poor.
Yes, they are poor. And not just cosmetically poor, they're genuinely dirt poor.
Yes.
Yes. Now, if there aren't activities that they can relate to, because this talk, if you can't relate it to anything that's going to change their lives, will fall on deaf ears.
Yes. I remember last year and the year before, we were doing regular town halls, which I think sounds very elite when you say we are doing a town hall.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't sound elite.
It is elite.
Great. So we were in social spaces, right? And we were trying to restore them. And we realized that restoring public social spaces where people will gather. So you go like a social hall and you find that it's in a very dilapidated state, and then figuring out, okay, we can't just come here and talk about we want better leadership, great, etc., etc., without actually showing and demonstrating that this is what that can translate to. So that's part of the things that we were actually doing, that we want to continue doing. So go to specific town halls and have these conversations, and then figure out what is it that we need for particular areas where not just our candidates were fronted, but even other places around them, and say, okay, so we are here, this is what we are doing. We want to have a conversation about ETC, but then we want to kind of reclaim these social halls and give them back to people so they can be used for what they used to be used as, where people would come, and sit and converse and sit and do artwork and sit and do like beadwork and whatever it is that they used to do in that particular area, because they're very area specific, right? And carry that forward. So then that would be multiplied into other things, Even the idea of having reclaiming walkways, was something that we were very intentional about doing. So as we talk about, it's raining now, people don't have anywhere to walk by, to walk on when they're going to work and they're struggling. But the thing about it is we are very cautious around making it seem like we are doing it for political clout, because we aren't doing it for political clout.
But you should.
We don't.
So you're doing it because it needs to be done.
It needs to be done.
But at the
now,
same time,
is it possible to look at this as a
message.
means to an end? Because this is a place where where a message needs to be passed.
Yes.
And then people need to understand, okay, if this has been done for me, because that's what they resonate with, especially when it comes to politics. This thing that I am in dire need of has been done for me. Now, this could be then the individual then who is going to come in and solve a lot of the other problems that are endemic in nature.
Absolutely. That's the next level of the conversation. Because if you outrightly go out and say, oh, wow, we are reclaiming XYZ, or maybe we are refurbishing this building that we're in specifically, right? And we are doing it as this, and the undertones of politics in Kenya. Everybody knows you want something. But then if you come at it from a very human perspective of, even I don't have a place to walk. And then when they see this has been done and now it's benefiting them, so we can have a conversation about, great, so we did this and we can do much more. That's why we need everybody to come on board and help us do all this X much more. You're getting me hooked
into the kind of situation that I am already in.
Which is
that I expect my leader to come and do something. It's a handout. It's either a handout, they're building a school for me, they're building a road for me. So that I can vote for them.
And that's,
whether
and
you're
remember,
telling me to vote for you now or you come back later. Right now, there are people who are sponsoring football tournaments across the country.
Yes.
The youth come together and sponsoring a football tournament. No, I'm not.
And
I'm not doing this for campaigns.
Yes.
Of course, 2022, they'll come back and be like, you remember that football tournament? So this is the time for payback. Let's have a conversation now. If you just do it that way, that, you come and rehabilitate walkways, you come and rehabilitate social halls and go away, and then you'll come back to me in 2022 and tell me you want to have a conversation, I'll expect another handout. At that point, my current need now, mtoto wangu hajaenda shule. So Scheaffer, are you guys...
Or someone has died and
someone has died, we need to transform.
We need
Actually, Eric, you've got to the heart of the matter, because if you begin by asking, because what do these people actually need?
Yes.
And your solutions seem to be centered around urban areas. In the rural areas, you don't have walkways. You just have roads and paths.
Yes.
If you were to ask, for instance, what do they need?
Yes.
And how can we address it?
Yes.
Not what do we think they need. That pathway is the least of their concern, if you ask me.
But that pathway is not directly what we do, because people we assume.
I've understood what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm simply saying that if you don't start by finding out what these people need and want, because I haven't heard you, I've been listening, I haven't heard you say that. I've heard you say what you plan to do, what you are doing, what you're hoping to do.
But you know, even what we are doing it because we've had these town halls that I keep telling you.
It's informed by the people.
Yes, that's why remember when I said that we're having consistent conversations.
You're a good politician.
No. I'm not even, which I also take. But I said very categorically, I said very categorically that we have consistent conversations with people. When we have conversations, these are the things that come out of our conversations.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's first take a break and look at what's happening on the roads. Conversation continues.
I did.
Conversation is continuing on social media platforms. Paula Char says on Twitter, great conversation. It would be great for the Kwale Party vice chairperson to explain more of how they can or intend to move from merely idealism to more pragmatic ideas, especially their first electoral participation.
Yes, I've also seen it. I think it's a fantastic question. I think one of the things we're doing now is trying to open more party offices because we want to be as nearer to the people as possible. I think that is very much what we owe the people. So having a decentralized party, because we have been in Nairobi, and that has been a thing of, we didn't like being in Nairobi. But you also look at the time when we got our registration and everything being a deadline by then, because it was 2017 in January. We needed to present people by March. These people need to be campaigning. You know, people are voting in like 2 or 3 months later. So then now having got our house in order, which we still continue to do, one is very intentionally planning to have more Kwale party offices where, you know, in several counties and in even wards, so as closer to the people as possible. 2, continuing with these conversations because I want, and I believe every Kenyan deserves that, I want to hear what's happening in specific areas of this country. Because out of the bubble of just Nairobi is not Kenya, you want to know what's happening.
Outside Nairobi.
Yes, you want to know what's happening there, what the needs are there, and what can be done in these particular places. And one of the things that we're also very intentional about doing is figuring out how to engage a voter who's really disgruntled, who's here wanting this wonderful leadership that is very utopia sounding now, but then how do we make them see and how do we engage them in more pragmatic things? So being involved in some of the activities that we plan to do, being involved beyond just, come and register and be part of the Kwale Party, but these are the things that you now get to do and these are the things that you now help us be able to build. Because one thing that the Kwale Party did, even when we were registering, was being very clear that our policies, our ideals, everything we stand for has to be led by people around us. We want to be as people-owned as we can, that people get to say, please, I really don't, you're my vice chair, that person is my chair, etc., but I don't agree with what you said. This doesn't sound like the conversation we've been having, right? Like we want that level of accountability.
So how many people own this party?
Right now, I think we have, and I'm estimating very roughly, so pardon me. I think we have around, is it 50? We have 50K people that I can account for. But then we want more people.
50,000 people registered as members.
Yes.
And these are the ones that contribute to the activities of the party?
Yes and no. The people who were registered, of course, contributed. And then we had people who just meet us, like I said, in traffic, in restaurants, you know, people who know you and be like, oh, Scheaffer, now you're part of this party and you're trying to do this thing. We'll send you money and then it goes to the party directly. So those are people. So I wouldn't say that it was just Kwale Party people, right, who were. Because I also know that even the Kenyans in the diaspora and even our friends who are not Kenyans in the diaspora who are contributing to this thing are not necessarily registered. So I think there's a lot more that we need to kind of harness.
So just like other political parties, you have supporters but not members, but you have 50,000 members.
Yes.
How many members do you hope to have before you have your first election?
As much as we can.
Let me say
as much as we can.
What I hear you saying is, you everything that you're doing is you want to change the rules by which this game is played, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So in the next 5 years, just tell me 5 practical things that you plan to do to change these rules.
One, I think one of the things that's very important for us is dignity for people. So dignity in regards to service provision. And that is dignity applied across every area that we get to engage. So one of the key things is education, right? So working very intently around figuring out, does CBC work? Is the rollout too fast? What role can we play to hasten it? What does it need to move forward? What are the investments we need to do? Do we need more people? Do we need more money? Do we need more time? Right? So education, I think, is very important. And then also education that is not just in school education, but also the education that happens outside, right? Because there's that part missing, where we used to have a very vigorous culture, where even our art, and we see that, and we keep complaining that the education has been lacking the art.
I'll reduce
so
the
that.
examples
And
to
then
3. Forget the 5. 3. That's 1. 2.
So then 2, I think health is a problem in this country, and people have been complaining about health. So figuring out how to work with the health practitioners, figuring out how to kind of just clean up the leadership within that space. Who are the people who should be playing within the health spectrum? How do we make health affordable to the majority of Kenyans who are in need of health? So we don't privatize public institutions and make it unaffordable for people. So health is very important. And then number 3, I think the rule of law. I think if anything, the rule of law, and we'll go back to the very chapter that we keep ignoring, which is chapter 6, because chapter 6 stated very well what the qualities of our leaders should be, what we should expect, how they should be held accountable, because chapter 6 now leads you outwards into institutions that help you implement this. So if you say a leader should be accountable, there's an institution that should help you keep a leader accountable, right? Is it judges? Is it the courts? Is it the law that is weak? What's happening, right? Then chapter 6 also leads you to a broader accountability spectrum where we're talking about public participation. How do we get to strengthen public participation forums where people come and they speak and they say, we need this in our area, we need that in this area, we don't need this, but that same thing they say they don't need is the one that's being implemented. So how do we strengthen accountability structures that can help us get leaders who are accountable, that can help us have citizens who are not afraid to actually say, this is what we need? Because we do know Kenya is a country where you say what you want and sometimes it's problematic. So 3 things: rule of law, health, and
none
education.
of them sounds like changing the game. Those things that you've said, Jubilee would say the same thing. ODM would say the same thing. Wiper would say the same thing.
But the only thing we don't have is a chance to do it, right? I think also that is a thing.
But
where
these
we
chances,
see,
you assume they are given to people?
No. If they were given to people,
For you to be able to
if they were,
convince people
let me just answer that. If they were given to people, why would we even create a political party? Why wouldn't I just speak this fantastical English and preach this wonderful gospel and not wait and not even get the votes and wait to be told, I have selected you for a thing. You see what I mean? We could have done that. We could have taken an easier route and just sit by the periphery and constantly castigate. Haven't we seen these people in Kenya who constantly castigate and then they're called into the circle?
You're saying you don't have the opportunity to do these things that you're saying.
We don't have even the resources.
ODM does not have the opportunity. Wiper does not
ODM,
have. Only Jubilee.
That's a lie. We are comparing apples and oranges.
Only Jubilee has
we are comparing apples and oranges. ODM might not have the direct, right? The direct ability to do all these things, but ODM as a party have people who they've had elected in power in various political institutions. They have had people nominated into political institutions who should do their work. It's very different from asking me, someone who's literally trying to do the same thing that someone who already has a position is failing at doing. I don't have the same resources.
It comes to the very end.
I think it's prudent then to also look at how they got into those positions in the first place, because it was not handed to them.
Yes.
Either on a silver platter,
yes,
right? Now, of course, asking the question, then what did they do with the opportunity when it had now been presented to them when they were in the position?
Yes.
All right. So it's obviously something that you're going to have to fight tooth and nail,
which we are doing
for. So now, of course, that begs the question, then what would you do? Really?
Actually,
what would
even
you
before
do?
we get there, you've got to convince me, because these people have convinced me the same before. They've come and told me the same thing. I gave them the opportunity. They have wasted that opportunity.
And even
and
as
you're
you
telling me that Scheaffer is going to be different.
No. So then the question would be, can I answer with the question?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. So the question would be, why would you punish me for the mistake of someone else?
Because I've been punished twice before.
So then now you're
shy.
So now you're literally doing the same thing I did, where Kenyans have been traumatized, and then we believe that everybody comes into this space, wants the same thing, wants to do the same thing, and turn out to be like everybody else, which would lead us to now discussing even the young people whom we have, because the last election we had very many young people elected into office, right?
Yes.
Many of them have turned up and now doing the same thing. Like I said, the burden of changing a system cannot be about one person. That doesn't still negate them from the responsibility of at least try something. See what I mean? But what it means is it makes people feel like every other young person is going to be the same, which is a false thing, which would mean, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because we have to believe that young people are not a monolith, that we are different. And even though the political culture wants us to believe that we are and that we all can do the same thing, a good example, Ken Okoth. Why was Ken Okoth different? In the midst of an array of people who are not performing, why is Kivutha different? Right? And those are examples that we can learn from. I know there are other cases as well that probably we don't know because we don't get to hear them and we are not everywhere, right? But there are people who are trying within the system. But the focus is always on the majority who fail. So then it becomes, oh my God, Lati failed, you failed, Scheaffer is failing. So now nobody else given an opportunity.
Scheaffer wants to come and tell me the same story. Where should I trust Scheaffer? That's where the problem is.
And that's why I said,
and I think
we
the
have
question
to prepare
that
people.
CT was asking you is between now and the next election, what do you want to do that will convince CT to give you the vote?
I think between now and the next
election, without
election,
just talking and saying, we'd like to see education, health.
No, one thing I want him to do, one thing I want you to do, so that it's not just me talking, is first I want you to come to our meeting, right? I want you to meet our people. I want you to sit down with our people, and I want us to have a constructive conversation around, this is why I feel I can't belong to this thing. And then we engage on a solution finding path other than breaking it down. Because that's what we are doing. We invite people, come, we sit, we discuss, we see.
What I hear you saying is you want me to give you free consultancy.
No, that's not what I said. But also if you want to. But still then again, that stands. One thing I want you to do is come and sit down and have conversations.
So engage.
And engage. Because there's so much work, right?
You know
there's so much work.
What I'm actually getting to is this. This arena you've entered has rules that have been galvanized into the system over a long period of time.
That's what I said, the culture.
Yes, you say it, but from your talk, I don't think you fully appreciate what it actually is and how difficult it is to actually change it the way you suggest it can be changed. Okay. I'm going to give you an example.
Yes.
We talk about extrajudicial killing. Are you aware that when you think of these, you don't think of Mungiki or say that's about Liberation Front? The public were very much in support of these people being killed.
Yeah.
But it's extrajudicial killing.
But you see, that's what I said. Weaponization. There are certain things that are weaponized in this country.
There's somewhere I'm going with this. When you're a politician and you want to wear a politician's hat, okay? Even if it's a politician's hat of change.
Yes.
You must be seen to understand what is actually happening. Not just someone who wants to advocate for change.
Yes. And be very aware.
Yes.
Of everything along the way.
You can have your town hall meetings, but it must reflect in the things that you say. I argued and told you most of your meetings seem to take place in the rural area, in the urban centers.
Yeah.
One has to start somewhere. I agree.
Yes.
But if you're talking about the greatest impact, it's usually in the place with the greatest needs.
That's true.
Okay?
That's true.
That none of your people got elected doesn't really matter. Not really.
Yeah.
I was comparing you to the Green parties. When they started, they were considered a joke.
Yeah.
72 is when we first had the first Green Party. The first ever person to be elected for a Green Party was in 1976 in Switzerland. Yeah. Okay? One didn't know that they'd get to a point where the Green Party would be deciding who formed the government.
True.
Okay? So it's not that this is an impossible thing, but you need to inject a huge dosage of reality into this thing, because what I am hearing now is NGO speak.
Okay.
And we know how far that goes.
Okay.
Yes.
Take a short break, 13 minutes to 10 o'clock. Good morning. Yeah, so CT is telling you about NGO speak. We are asking, what exactly are you planning to do in the next 2 or 3 years? So let's come into 2022. You had 13 candidates in the last election. How many do you hope to have in the next election?
Probably 40. And I need to give context. We had 13 candidates who passed our criteria of being fronted by the party. We had, I think, 230 something others who applied And because Kenyans are non-compliant, especially because political party has been seen as a vehicle where you can buy a ticket and just be, and just go. So as very basic things, just give us a certificate of clearance, just have a letter from, whatever institution saying you've not been charged of corruption or whatever. And people didn't want to. So that's how we cut it down to 13. So I think that's in very important context to bring in. In 2022, hopefully we have more. I'm hoping 40 just because I love 40 as a round figure.
Really?
Then we can just break them down like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And I'm saying that because as a party leadership, even in the last election when we were fronting these 13 candidates, we were employing a mechanism where each and every candidate had to work with the leadership of the party. So even if I wasn't vying, I was working with someone who was vying. So we get the experience of what it means to vie. And like we told ourselves when we finally got into this thing, we are all in political party nursery school, right? So assuming we know things is just an outright lie. Assuming we know how this thing is going to play out even in 2 months, 3 months is an outright lie. Because if anything we know about Kenyan politics, it never turns out what you think it's going to be. So hopefully then we would have 40. And we want more. And we specifically target MCAs and MPs because we believe the people in parliament have so much power to do their oversight role well. To act as you're literally like the watchman for the people, So if you have more people there who understand what people need for you to be watching and why and which places you need to be to, it's very important. And then because they are protectors of the constitution, this constitution that apparently could go into a referendum. So having people who can protect that is very key and very vital because it's a beautiful, beautiful document that runs this country. We need people to protect it. MCAs is our key target as well because one, and most importantly, we have devolution. We devolved power. We devolved leadership. We do not devolve the fact that this power needed to be given to the people. And the MCA is the first person you have connections with when you're talking to people, right? They're the person who's supposed to know, oh my God, in this ward where I have 16,000 people, these are their needs. These are the number of elderly people I have. This is the number of children I have who are under 5. This is the number of girls I have. This is the number of XYZ. And then this can be taken forward, to now the governor. And then they have a meeting and say, I think my ward's priorities should be XYZ. We probably need more hospitals or we need more clinics in my ward because I have elderly people and children. We probably need street lights because we have more young people in the area doing businesses at night and for security. You see, these things don't work out of a vacuum. They understand the things at the bottom. They understand the things. Like they're the person who you're supposed to meet next door and be like, so what's up? Yes, this
garbage.
What's going on? And then they are supposed to elevate these conversations. So that's why we are really targeting MCAs and MPs because we realize the role that they play and they're very strategic within the decentralization of leadership that we have in Kenya.
It's a good one.
That is the game.
We know that you'd like to leave because you have a place to go. So Ndu is going to ask you your final question.
Wonderful.
Looking at, obviously, it goes without saying that we've talked about change and it needs to happen. And we've often said that the person who comes in that is going to now effect this change is somebody who's going to have, across board, is going to have some kind of targeted, focused, deliberate reform agenda.
Yes.
Do you see that this is something that it can be done we're talking about primarily the younger people.
Yes.
Do you think this is something that can be done without experience?
I think yes or no. I think, and I say yes and no because I am here engaging in a political space without coming from a political background or family, but constantly learning along the way, constantly hearing, constantly knowing when to shift, when to move, when to listen to what is happening, right? So that part, yes. And then the part where it's no is because you cannot imagine that you know what you don't know. So then we still need, and I say we, meaning the young people, they still need guidance from people who are very focused and seeing that, this is where you're going. This is what might be your blind spot. Look at this. Be cautious around this. Focus on this. Engage in this.
So we don't need a clean sweep. We need a marriage of experience and
we need
injection of new ideas.
We do. We need clean people, clean, and I mean clean in the sense of, please, you've never run for office to run for office. And then we need the people who've been here. And I think Kenya, we just rate people who've been in office as the ones who successfully got elected. Even the people who've done it and have not gone through, you need to know what the experiences was like, what they intended to do, what are these things that you can pick from them and implant in whatever it is that you're taking the country forward with. I think that. So yes, we need a marriage of these two people. So we need an intergenerational conversation on politics, but not with redundant political bigots. I don't think we need that right now. Yes.
So give you this 1 minute to give a message to Kenyans.
Yeah.
Here's your moment to plug your party, call for recruits and everything. Go.
Thank you. So to every Kenyan listening and to the young people of this country who are the majority voters, who feel disenfranchised and feel like this country doesn't belong to them, articulate their issues, represent them, look and feel like them. I want to offer an opportunity for us to do something about that hopelessness. And because I believe that only hopeful people can fight, I want us to find that hope together. And I know it's exhausting. And I know the country takes a lot of energy from us to even discuss and leave alone even engage. But I want us to not give up because I feel like we only have this and now to do what we can do. So Kwale Party is offering itself to be a party of the people. Please come, join us, get on our website. If you want to sign up, please sign up because we need people. We literally do need people for real, like registration. We need to have people ensure that, yay, you actually are part of us.
How much is it to join your party?
It's free. Joining our party is very free. There's a link on the website. Go on that link, click, and then just have your details there. Join our party. Be part of the conversations that we're having. I cannot do anything I have said today alone. I think that needs to be very clear. Yes.
Well, you've got Boniface Mwangi with you. You have at least those are like 10 people
in
one. Right?
I need 1,000 Boniface Mwangis.
Very good.
So, you know, I'm just saying, come forth Boniface Mwangis and Scheaffer Okores and every other person out there so we can do something.
Thank you very much, Scheaffer Okore.
You're welcome.
She is the Vice Chairperson of Kwale Party, also a Development Strategy Advisor. Thank you for joining us. We'll be calling you again, of course, to discuss matters that are affecting the country.
Absolutely.
Now, next time you'll come and tell us about the other political parties and what you think they're doing and what they're not doing and what Kwale Party would be doing differently if it was the one in power or in these positions of authority.
I will not be available.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
The conversation continues as always on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Log on to www.spicefm.co.ke.